So, it's been 1 week as opposed to 2 weeks. So we're trying something new,
We need to go back.
much to the dismay of both of you.
Yeah. Appears my upstairs neighbors are home.
Can you hear them jumping on the floor?
Yeah, they're fans of doing calisthenics or jumping jacks or stomping or maybe getting a little too drunk.
I know the feeling.
You've yet to find out. I haven't really talked to them.
I've got upstairs neighbors who love moving the furniture at 3 in the morning. So,
When else would you
A
do
classic.
yeah. Anyway, Simon is at college now.
Yes, I'm in the apartments. I have 4 roommates, so it's 5 of us. We'll have a room with 3 people.
So is it a room of 3 and a room of 2
Yep.
connected?
Yeah, and then we have a living room and a kitchenette.
Huh. Interesting.
1.5 bath.
That is interesting. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, 1.5 bath, does that mean only one shower?
1 shower. 2
Oh
toilets.
no. Oh no.
It has not been a problem yet.
Oh, that one shower for 5 people. That is going to be a problem.
or a good time?
Yeah, save water. We're in a drought.
Not anymore.
You're just with the homies. Just showering with the homies. I see nothing wrong with that.
uh,
Kiss a homie goodnight. That ain't gay.
How many baths do you have?
in my apartment, there's 4 of us, and then there's one like bathtub with a shower attachment, and then one shower. And even still, like the one person to share a shower with annoys me when he chooses to shower. I couldn't imagine there being 5 people.
Well, luckily we have like our schedules stack in like the best way possible, I guess. Plus, one of my roommates showers at night. I mean, one of my roommates has been MIA since like Thursday. So
He may have no class on Friday, so he could just dip Thursday and come back Monday.
that is true. I unfortunately do have class on Friday.
Die, get wrecked, scrub. No, I have no class on Friday, and then my class on Monday starts at 4 p.m., so there's always the chance I can just drive up to Bakersfield and, I don't know, annoy Sam while I'm there.
Convenient.
So how you liking UCSB over there, Simon?
It's pretty good. I've only had 3 classes, so I don't have much of an opinion. But I do like the campus, and the classes haven't been extremely hard.
What do you like about the campus? What's good about
The weather, and
it?
I myself am fond of cycling, and I have a bicycle, and there are lots of bike lanes and bike racks. So it's been fun biking to class.
Alright.
Or even like there's like a little college town called Isla Vista. Basically, it's attached to the university, so it's been fun biking through.
Alright. So what classes are you taking this semester?
I am taking French 4, Japanese 4, which is probably going to be very difficult, and French 153, which is called Fantasy slash Fantastic, and I'm not exactly sure what we're going to be talking about, but it's a major requirement, and it's taught in English, so I can't complain.
Huh. Odd. So only taking 3 classes this whole quarter?
Yep, and that rounds up to 13 units.
How on earth is that 13? Isn't the max 4 per class?
No, language classes are 5.
Really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
it is.
So how long do you expect you to be at college for?
3 years.
So that would make 5 total with your 2 years of community?
Yeah, but my last year is abroad, so that's okay.
Ah. So you going to France or you going to Japan?
If I can get away with it, both.
Semester in one, semester in the other.
Yeah, but I'm sure I'm probably just gonna have to pick one, and that one will probably have to be France.
All right.
because that is my actual major.
You're not going to weeb it up. Yeah, my two roommates are trying to take their last year abroad in Japan. That's just because they're massive weebs.
Fat oof. Like 90% of the programs going to Japan are like not for Japanese or for like
Yeah,
engineers. Or
exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's all for the weebs.
I mean, they probably should be learning like, something a bit more useful for that field, like German or French or Italian.
Yeah, everyone who's going abroad to Japan is not going there to learn the language.
Yeah. I also live next to an airport.
Oh, is that what we're hearing now?
Yeah.
Ah, fun times.
How have your guys' classes been?
Been going pretty well. I've had my first round of midterms last week and a bit of next week. So that means we're a third of the way through this semester.
Ah, yes, the middle.
Yes, the middle one, not. Now my classes have been fine. It's all major stuff, thankfully, but I have to take one GE class, and this will be my last one for my lower level GEs.
Oh, yeah, the Western folk tales. Western
Yeah.
European folk tales, excuse me.
Yep,
How's that been?
it's been okay. The class is pretty easy, all things considered. There will be 4 papers due for that class, and we had to turn in the first one last week. And we have to write 1 actual critical paper, and then 3, like, quote-unquote papers, where I can turn in, like, an image gallery, or I can, like, write my own folktale. So I did, like, the one real essay first, just to get it out of the way. And I was just comparing, like, one of the stories I read in class to one of Tolkien's stories, because Tolkien just, like, took a bunch of folktales and it was like, these exist in Lord of the Rings now.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But once I finished up with that one, all I have left will be the upper level GEs, which is more fun to do.
How about you, Sam?
I've gotten through 1 midterm. 2 more are this week. Then the last one is, I don't even remember when it was moved to.
Ouch.
When the midterms tomorrow, and you decide to study tonight.
Yes.
Fantastic. I mean, I studied a little bit for my Japanese placement exam because they made me do that here. And I didn't do so well on it because they quizzed me on things I didn't know because I wasn't taught them because we were using a different textbook. But if I went with the class that the teacher recommended me, I'd have to wait till spring. So she's like, you know what? Why don't you try on the class that you wanted? That is probably too hard for you, but it's more convenient. So we'll let you try it. And I am very quickly learning like how to do things that I should know. So that's been fun.
It's funny, you're complaining on your podcast about having to take the test, but then you realize the test was actually useful in placing where you are.
Yeah.
Then you realize the real test was the friends we made along the way.
So has there been any Gen Ed classes you guys have liked?
I mean, that's a different question. So, there's been classes that... What?
Just a completely different question.
Well, no, because, like, classes that I've liked versus, like, classes that I find useful are 2 very different categories. So, like, there's been, like, a few Gen Ed classes that, like, were okay, mostly because I had friends who were also taking the class. The only one that I, like, actually thought was fun was the argument and debate class that I took. So, for that class, it was me, my friend Quinn, and my friend Xander, and we were just having fun. So we had to do, one of our assignments, we had to do a proof of, like, a statement of fact speech, where I had to pick a fact and then prove that fact. And my fact was that the Earth is flat. So I did a 5-minute speech about how the Earth is actually flat with evidence. And then
Did you pass?
I got an A in the class.
That is hilarious.
So The teacher was really nice, so I got a D on that assignment. And it was mostly because I forgot to turn in the outline, and he gave me a 0 for evidence, as it was all from the 1800s. What was really funny was the guy sitting in front of me had to do a refutation speech, so he had to do a 5-minute speech about how I was wrong. So that was a fun time. So like, yeah, so like me, Xander, and Quinn just had like a fun time in that class, but that's just because of who I was with, not because of how the class actually was. And I've just had to take, bring up my course history. I've had to take so many GE classes, and so many of them have been just a waste of time.
I feel you.
See, thankfully, I was able to skip quite a few general education requirements because of AP tests. So I did not have to take a history course because of my AP US history score, and I did not have to take my first 3 classes of calculus because of my AP Calculus 2 score. And then I was almost able to skip my politics requirement due to my AP government score. But that was another kind of hullabaloo that happened. Because for my school, in order to fulfill the political science requirement, you have to get a 4 or 5 on the AP government exam and then pass the California government exam, which is a completely separate exam run by the state to show how much you know about state government and state history.
Ouch. And they don't teach anything about that at all in California schools.
They do not. So they were like, you can buy this $60 textbook and you can take the test like a month from now, or you can take the test tomorrow if you're confident. And I actually had no idea what was on the test. I just heard California government test. And I was like, oh, it's going to be just more AP government. So I decided to take the test like that day. And it was incredibly specific to California politics. And I don't know who the first California governor was. I don't know who started the opposition party in California. And so there's a lot of questions I just had no clue whatsoever. The mark to hit was 30 out of 50, and I was able, and if I hit that mark, I could skip the political science class, and I got 29 out of 50.
That's very lucky of you.
I was so close, but I had to take the class, and that was just boring.
Big oof. I have to take an American history course here because they require that for some reason.
All of the general education requirements are come down from on high, like they're from the state government, they're not by school, they're not even from the UC system. And I mean, you spent 2 years doing general education stuff at community college.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any class you took there that you found in any way useful?
Useful. Just my language classes. Those are the only things that were actually useful to me. Other than that, I would just pick stuff that filled requirements and sounded fun.
I mean, your language classes, they're for your major, though. They're not general education classes.
Well, for UC, they are gen ed. You have to take 1 year of language at UC system, at a UC school.
That's lame.
Yeah, it's only for people who are not me. So I did 1 year of 2 languages, so I definitely got in. But I only did that originally because I was going to be a linguistics major, and at Santa Barbara, or at least the UC system, to graduate with a linguistics degree, you have to take I believe it's 2 years of a language and 1 year of another language that's not in the same language family. And so I was taking French because that was the language of my main focus. And since French is an Indo-European language, I couldn't take Spanish because that is also an Indo-European language. And the only other language that they offered besides Italian, which is also an Indo-European language, was Japanese. So I took Japanese, and now it's my other major. Because Japanese is a Japonic language, as you might imagine.
Calculated.
I don't know, saying language family that feels really broad because
It is really
like
broad.
like Indian is so much like different from French that like yeah, they're in the same family technically, but like
They're different languages entirely.
it's not like Spanish and Portuguese where they're like the same language barring like a few words. Like it's very different.
Well, they say language family because the languages are all descended from a common ancestor, like a species.
But aren't all languages like really? Because aren't all humans descended from a common ancestor? So aren't all languages from a common ancestor?
Speak for yourself.
That idea has been heavily debunked by linguists. There is no such thing as proto-world in the linguistic community.
But I mean, you could say the same about pretty much any like proto language. Like going back far enough, there's no evidence for it.
For Proto-Indo-European to like exist in the way that we currently understand it, but it is just a fairly good guesstimation.
I don't know. When you say family, like Romance, I find to be like a good family, or Cyrillic, like a good family. But like saying Indo-European,
But you mean Balto-Slavic?
is that the actual name for it? I always just called it Cyrillic.
As Balto-Slavic. It's Lithuanian, Latvian, and then all the Slavic languages, because fuck you. And then there's Germanic.
I was just thinking of the name of the alphabet.
Yeah, well, it's good enough, honestly. May as well call it Cyrillic. Except Lithuanian, Latvian, Polish, and the most of the Yugoslav languages and all the West Slav languages use the Latin alphabet, so it isn't an accurate way to describe it.
It all sounds like a Russian to me.
That's because they're all mutually intelligible to a pretty good degree.
This reminds me of an Onion video where it's in intelligible shouting is set as America's national language. So, are there any GE classes you took, Simon, that you found fun?
Yeah, I took a history of Western Civ until like 1500, 1700, I mean. No, it was 1500. And I liked that because I was pretty much the Hermione Granger of that class because I already knew it all. So I was having a good time.
That's only 100 years of EU4.
Pretty much. Well, I didn't know it all, but I learned a lot, but I knew like enough to like get it done.
What about you, Sam? Have you had any GE classes you found useful and or fun?
The geology one was fun. And yeah.
So I'm guessing that's a no on any of them being useful.
I guess the lifetime fitness was useful, albeit I'm not doing a lot with it. But it did give me information that's good to know and whatnot.
Are you not applying the elements of fitness to your daily life?
Nope.
Are you not biking all the way to CSUB from your house?
That was the least safe thing to do.
Very far
That is
as well.
Guaranteeing you're going to get hit by a car.
That's dangerous by car even.
Bakersfield's not a good city for biking.
Barely a good city for driving.
It's barely a good city.
Yeah, I met another Bakersfieldian in my French class by coincidence, and I was like, hey. And I guess, like, I'm pretty sure Bakersfield is really just divided by schools. So
Oh, yeah.
my immediate question
yeah.
is, what school did you go to?
That is the question.
Yeah, because that really just determines everything I need to know about you. And he went to a charter school, so my immediate thought is not a Bakersfielder.
Yeah, I've met one guy from Bakersfield and he went to BHS.
Nice.
As far as I know, no one from our high school went here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all went to SLO.
No, I know only like one person, or no, two people got into so, and I think only one went.
From what I remember at like rallies, most people were going, or at least trying to go to SLO, CSUB, and maybe some UCs. Like the overachievers to go to like the classic UCs, UCLA, UC Berkeley. feel like other people would just go to like UC San Diego if they got into a UC Merced, maybe Davis.
Quite a few went to Davis. A lot of people went to Riverside.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The only person I know who went to Merced was Rigo. And I still have no idea why he decided to go.
I imagine a lot of people besides BC are just not going to college. I feel like they just go to like random CSUs apart from CSUB.
I was hoping to complain about GEs because just, I mean, we spent how many years of high school and middle school and elementary school?
In 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years doing ostensibly general education. And then finally we get to go to a
College.
school of our choice doing
A
a
thing of
career
our
path
choice.
yeah, major of our choice, going towards a career path of our choice. And then once again, the government is like, nah, we got to prove that you know how to do like basic shit for some reason.
And they were going to make you pay for it this time for no reason.
Exactly. So like every class costs like a couple $100.
For
And it's-
credit. Yeah, it's around $200, I believe. So like if it's a 3 credit class, that's $600.
Yeah, so like public school like just had us like locked in for 12 whole years of nothing but general education, and now we're on our own. We're adults, but now we have got to pay for more general education.
You guys are paying $250 per unit.
Yeah. And a lot of these like GE classes are worth like 3 or 4 units because they're like built into other majors. So I had to take a biology class to fulfill a science GE, and that was a 3 unit class because bio majors take this class. I had to take just like random ass classes to fulfill like bullshit GEs, and it makes no sense at all.
I mean, I think it sort of does. It's just like it's not really useful, but like the idea is that it's supposed to make you a more rounded person. But it's still like
12 fucking years though.
I know.
They had 12 years to make us rounded.
It's just completely
Now
ridiculous.
we're paying to make us more rounded. Yeah. It's just absolutely.
There definitely needs to be like serious education reform because it is just so antiquated and just retarded.
Yeah. Sort them by production year. Simon, if we made you God Emperor in charge of the United States, how would you solve our education system? What are your ideas?
Um, I would increase funding
Just throw more money at the
not
problem?
only for sports but for I mean that is a problem the education system faces is a lack of funding, especially for like the arts and stuff because I feel like a lot of the money, depending where you're at, really goes towards sports and sciences, is or really STEM. If the school is getting money at all, let's be real. But I feel like if you want to make kids more well-rounded, I feel like a more as well as an appreciation for the sciences, more of an appreciation for the arts. Even though you can't really make kids appreciate shit like that,
Yeah,
but
it's not how kids operate. You can't make them care about things.
yeah, that's sort of like the problem with like a very fundamental problem with the educational system or education in general is like it's hard to make people care. Which is why I think a lot of people, and now that I think about it, I would have to agree that in more of an a la carte style of education, where like you start off in like middle school, I believe is what people like to say, is like you start in middle school and like kids are like instead of like a couple of electives and then all GE, it's much more electives than GE. So like people start working on their vocation in like middle school. I feel like something like that would be a better system, at least to try out.
Yeah, trying things out is definitely a good thing. I sort of disagree with that. People who argue for people should start like having job experience in middle school, in my experience, are the same people who argue that picking like a job for the rest of your life when you're 18, you're way too young. We should have them pick the job when they're 11. No, that's not the solution to the
Yeah.
problem.
But I feel like experimenting, at least when you're younger, is, I think, it definitely a better idea.
Exactly, but I feel that having an element of choice in middle school would be counterproductive, especially since there were some electives that were just fun. Like, I remember, it's weird saying those words because I generally don't, but I remember in middle school there was like a filmmaking class. Do you remember that?
What
It
class?
was like it taught you how to like film things.
Oh, I didn't take that class. I took a computer programming
Yeah,
class.
I should have taken that class because looking at my major now, but like, yeah, there was a filmmaking class, and people took it because it was fun and easy, not because they actually wanted to do anything with filming in the future. So that's the problem that I see when like people say like, well, people pick their classes because they're gonna pick classes that are fun and easy, not classes that'll prepare them for the future. So yeah, there should be way more variety, especially in like middle school, but I think it should still be more regimented, where
More Prussian. Because we have the Prussian system for school.
can you define that? Because I don't know what that really means.
It's as you said, it's very regimented. It's not as regimented as it once was, but it's definitely like you do this at this time and this time and this time, and you have to do these things because we said so. And then they sprinkle in a little bit of nationalist propaganda for
Of
fun.
course, that's what you have to do. I pledge allegiance to the
Yeah.
flag.
I never had to do that in Carmel.
Really?
Never. Yeah, that's. I guess that's the perks of living in Liberalville, USA.
Pledge
But
allegiance to Clint Eastwood, the mayor of our great city, who gave us back our ice cream. Was he the one who was elected for the ice cream thing, or was that someone else?
uh, yeah, I believe that was him. Well, it's more like he expanded like the business area of Carmel because he's angry that is like everyone is acting stupid about it, which is reasonable. Um,
He did overturn the ice cream ban.
got him.
That's great.
Yeah, like a lot more variety of choice.
He fights for the
I know,
people.
I'd say a lot more variety, but I'd say less choice. That'd be my solution for things like in middle school. Like instead of having like two electives each year, that like a total of six electives, I would instead split that into 12, and you have like a quarter just to like learn something new, like a quarter of computer programming, a quarter of art, a quarter of I don't know like cooking, a quarter of applied mathematics or something like that. So you have like
Yeah, and then like like creative writing.
exactly you have like
Yeah,
yeah,
musicianship.
so you have like way more opportunities throughout your middle school career to try numerous different things.
I feel like that's the word. Yeah, I think that's the word that we're really looking for is more opportunities.
Yeah.
Is at least in Bakersfield for education, there are like no opportunities to do anything.
I mean, we had some choice. We had
I mean, like
electives.
opportunities to do like interesting things,
Yeah.
like field trips and nature studies class, which should basically just be like Boy Scouts, but I guess it'd be focusing or like naturalist. What is it? Naturalist,
You
geology.
guys should have been in the scouts. That would have been so much fun.
I know. I wanted to, but my parents didn't trust the local organization, so I never got to do it.
I mean, did they know I was?
They went to the one in the Dale.
Yeah, that. No, you didn't, because that was mine.
That's where my parents went, and they didn't trust the people at that location, so I never got to do scouts.
Wait, which troop did you try to go to? Because the one in Oildale was the one that I was a part of.
I never went to anything. My parents went, and they decided that they didn't like it, so I wasn't gonna do it.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
Yep.
Nah, because as soon as my parents moved to Bakersfield, they signed me up for the local Cub Scout group, and that is where I spent the next. God, math is hard. I spent the next 13 years in the Scouts, and then I've spent the last 2 years working as a merit badge counselor. Nah,
Yeah, but I think your idea is pretty good for middle school. Like every quarter, like a different thing.
exactly.
But I definitely think like there should be more funding for like renovations to schools because I feel like our schools are like kind of shitty.
That have to be done like on a school by school basis kind of thing. That's not something you could do as a broad
Yeah,
sweeping.
at least like redoing how schools are funded
Oh, that's
because how they're funded currently is that they're funded from property taxes, which is a bit of a problem because it means that wealthier areas that collect higher amounts of property tax get better schools.
no. So California, the way they try to supplement that is that they fund schools based on test scores, and schools with the lowest test scores get more state funding as a way to supplement the federal funding based around housing prices. So like you always like you went to like schools of bigger food. You always heard the joke that BCSD always has like 3 times the funding of any of our districts, like per school, just
Yeah,
because all their test scores are always awful.
I remember hearing that they had like violins and stuff, but we never got to have it because we were a good school, and I always thought that was
Oh
kind of
yeah,
fucked
they.
up.
My father was a music teacher for the Bakersfield City School District, and oh yeah, they get violins. Like they're like cellos at their middle schools. They have a lot of equipment.
Yeah, so that I feel like it has a couple more kinks to work out, but it
It's
can
definitely
work.
something difficult to do on a large scale.
Yeah, it's better than No Child Left Behind.
I never actually knew what that did.
Leave all children behind.
Basically, the idea of No Child Left Behind was that let me try to remember this correctly. Basically, every school now has a new target of the minimum reading scores and math scores they need to keep on running. And if they don't meet those scores, then they get shut down.
What happens to the like actual school and the employees when it gets shut down?
I forgot, but that's what happened,
Something
basically.
has to happen. That feels because then people lose their jobs and then that land has to go somewhere.
And then the students need a new school.
Yeah, something has to happen. That can't be what happens.
I, for the life of me, I can't remember what happened after that, or if this is even like correct.
They get Thanos.
But I remember it was something along those lines where it was just like absolutely like retarded. I think also like standardized tests need to get rid of.
When the school closed, they were privatized.
Ouch.
So,
That is a fat oof right there.
No Child Left Behind helped start the charter school boom.
Was it not that good? Yeah, it's a very bad. I would get rid of private schools as well.
I don't know. That's when you're rich enough to send your kids to private school, you're rich enough to lobby against getting rid of them.
Yeah, but if I'm God Emperor, then I can just I can Thanos them and then take their money and fund the schools.
Take their money.
You know, in an act that would make Bernie Sanders
But if you go to
blush.
private schools, you don't automatically get that money. That's not how that works.
That is true.
I don't know. As long as there's rich people, there's going to be private schools. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, but they're definitely like
They're not draining anything.
it's definitely unfair when the idea of the education system is to create like a fair way for people to be educated and trained in some sort of manner. And having like people like fast track themselves into a better education through money, I feel like is not the best option or like just not good.
I see nothing wrong with private schools where people are. It's the same thing like with homeschooling, where private schools is basically just homeschooling on a larger scale, where you're paying money to have your children
Yeah.
educated outside of the public school system. But with private schools, you're paying a lot of money for your students, for your kid to get a very good education. It's the same thing why like parents in China will move to the U.S.
To get a better education for their kids.
I don't see anything really wrong with
Mhm.
private schools, like as a concept.
I see it definitely as a little problematic.
You just want to beat up more rich kids in middle school, don't you, Simon?
Pretty much.
You want to go back?
God, who wants to go back?
Not me.
Or do you want to just show up at the middle school and just beat up kids regardless?
Yeah, just show up with a freaking tire iron. I think a lot of how I feel about public school is more like the culture shock I experienced from moving from Centennial to Carmel. Because Carmel is like way nicer. And there's like a lot more educational opportunity in terms of like things to do.
Give an example.
There's digital music, graphic design. Uh, Dance was actually like a thing. A lot more field trips, more APs. There was AP Psych, AP Environmental Science. No AP Euro for some stupid reason.
You never got a chance to redeem yourself for that one.
No, I couldn't. It was just like, but the culture was definitely like way worse there. I did not like the student culture there at all, compared to the Centennial.
All right, explain what you mean.
Like, naturally, because well, basically how that school was is that they expected you to take pretty much every AP you could possibly like chug down your throat. And poor performing students were typically just like shipped off to their version of Vista West. Like really like pushed to do that. It was definitely like a little sus. And there was like no school spirit, no spirit weeks like we had in Centennial. Because at least from what I remember, Centennial was very fun. Is very lively in terms of like spirit weeks and like things to do.
That's true.
But like we had no lights for our stadium, so football games were on Saturday mornings for some reason. So like no one wanted to go to football games.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had no marching band for whatever reason. Maybe it would have been cool if we did, but I guess it's not 100% necessary. But it's definitely like a part of the high school experience to have a marching band. We did have a pep band though, so I guess that's good enough. But like, I don't know. I feel like marching bands are. I feel like they're cool.
This is the man who never actually marched and just stood in the pit.
Yep. From a student perspective, it's a lot of fun to like be a part of something and then like present it
Yeah,
with like a whole bunch of people that are your friends and you spend a lot of time with them.
that makes sense.
Kind of like a sport, but you know it's not a sport.
And so back up a bit. So you said that if you didn't take as many AP classes as you possibly could, you were
And you performed
you
poorly.
performed poorly. You were shunned socially, or the school like shunned you? Like, was it a student thing or was it an institutional thing?
Institutional.
What was the question?
How do you feel about the quality of education you received in Bakersfield during your K through 12 years?
I want you to contribute something, so it's not just a me and Simon podcast. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I'm like looking at this homework, and I'm like, I don't think I can finish this if I continue doing the podcast right now.
Sam, I'll tell you what. You've guaranteed next week's topic is going to be time management, and we're going to make fun of you.
Yeah.
What does time management have to do with it?
You doing your homework at the last minute.
And not doing it while you had prior engagements that would prevent you from doing it.
I blame work for today. I can blame work for today, but not yesterday.
Anyway, Grant, how do you feel about the quality of your education that you received in Bakersfield during your K through 12 years?
So while you're waiting for Sam, I actually did Google how the two are rated. Our high school was rated at a 9 and is currently at a 9.
That's pretty good.
So, like, you call your education poor, and you can definitely call the city poor, but our education is, compared to the rest of the nation, well above average. I'm going to look up your high school to see how it fares. What's the actual name of your high school?
Carmel High School.
Thank you.
I mean, I also like was in the retard classes, so like that definitely like puts a pretty big like damper on like
10 out of 10, 97th percentile.
yeah, I went to a good high school.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I noticed the difference, and I was pretty pissed, which is why I feel the way I feel.
Well, yeah. Alright, so discuss what we changed about middle school. Would you change anything about high school if, once again, you're still the god emperor about the education system?
No, I think at high school it would have to narrow down.
How so?
I feel like the current style of electives in high school, where it's one per semester or year, is a fairly good system. I think being one per semester would be a bit better, but I feel like they probably could be a bit more focused. Higher art classes, like higher level art classes, or like more focused sort of art classes, like design, for example, or printing, and classes like sports med, which I believe are fairly common in high schools. Like things like that that are a bit more like narrowed down, but like general enough.
Do you have sports med at Carmel High School?
Yep.
Really? Huh.
Well, that's for like the 97th percentile or whatever. So
Yeah.
like and I said we had like AP Environmental Science, AP Psychology, Philosophy, like digital music, so like music producing, graphic design, which included like printing and like learning how to design a poster or whatever, which I did, and I didn't learn any of it because it wasn't that intense. But for people who would actually care, they learned a lot from that class.
I mean, if you didn't learn, that shows that the class doesn't actually teach and the class doesn't need to exist, and the people who actually care probably already know what's going on.
Maybe some people would probably need an actual class, or a class would be useful because that class offered a what's it called, a free opportunity to like get certified with Adobe Photoshop, which
Ah.
could probably be useful for people. But like, I think you get what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I do. The classes give you more opportunities. It gives you more experience, and in this case, it gives you actual.
yeah, it definitely like expands like what you know.
Yeah.
It's definitely like cool to do, but like for some people, they're not. It's like in any other class where like you're not gonna remember at all like after like a year, but it's definitely like cool to do at least.
I mean, if you're not gonna remember in a year, I'd call it completely useless, because that's my thinking of how high school should be run. Is yes, it should be more narrow. It should be more focused. So if we have my system of you've gotten general education up through middle school, and you've taken about a dozen of electives, so you know what you want to do, or you know the area that you're interested in. High school would be the time when you would get to more narrowly hone in on what you actually care about. So if you figured out in middle school that you really like math and science, you could take higher level math or science courses, or if you really like English and history, you can take more in-depth English and history courses, or if you found you really interested in a creative field, you're thrown into the dumpster where you're going to end up anyway. Because if you think about high school, the classes that you took then that you didn't care about, how many of them were there? How many classes did you just completely despise?
Everything but music classes and language.
Yeah, and so you took a whole bunch of history classes and science classes that
I didn't care about and I don't remember.
you didn't care about, you don't remember, and that means they didn't help you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't remember something, that means it clearly did not affect you. So I definitely think in high school that it needs to be much more focused. So if you figure out in middle school that you're really big into science and technology, no, you shouldn't need 4 more years of English. You shouldn't need 3 more years of history. You should be able to like focus in more on what you actually care about. And if it turns out that, oh, you're really good at like English and history, but you're really bad at like at math, you shouldn't need to take then 4 more years of mathematics.
I feel you.
Yeah. And barring all of that, after 12 years of general education, you shouldn't then need
More.
a dozen more GE classes in college.
I feel like a couple of them like might be useful. Like if you're gonna be a scientist, like being able to properly format a paper would be useful.
Yeah, but then you could have a specialized course for it.
Yeah. So like, but that would be yeah. So you're right. It'd be
Yeah.
but it would be part of the science course.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't need to take an English analysis class. You would take a writing for engineers class.
Yeah. Or a formatting class, so to speak.
Yeah. Like the same way like if you were taking like if you were majoring in like history, you maybe have like a stats course, but like you wouldn't need like geometry and you wouldn't need calculus.
You just need to like be able to like. I'm not quite sure what you'd use with stats for history, but I'm sure you might need it.
I don't know. I feel like stats is the one math that applies to a lot of areas in a lot of weird ways.
Well, history is more of like studying what happened and doing cross comparisons, which is a bit more of an English analysis sort of field.
Hmm.
But of course, that depends on like what kind of history you're doing. Like a historian, who like delves through books and like compares notes to like find out the truth of what actually happened to like the best possible degree that we can find. Or like a person who runs a museum who may not need to do those sorts of things, but you know what I mean.
Kind of. I don't really know what a historian does.
Those sorts of things, either running a museum or collecting dust somewhere.
A historian's job is just to collect more dust.
But it just happens to be mildly interesting on YouTube.
The only thing you can do with a history degree is make a vaguely interesting history YouTube channel. Yeah, so you've completely finished your GEs, and I still have
Yep.
a few more to go before I'm entirely done.
Because I remember when I first went into middle school, I did summer school and I did PE and mythology. And I feel like having like those sorts of things on like a quarter level would just be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I remember there being like a summer school for middle school, but I don't have any. I remember it existing, but I don't have any memory of what actually happened. But that's my memory for you.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember exactly what happened. I just remember having a good time because I was like playing dodgeball and also like learning myths, which is pretty cool in my opinion.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. Summer school was always beneficial, but it was never meant for students to actually use, just for people who failed to have a chance to not fail. Like, summer school
Yeah.
was never a resource that an average student could utilize. It was always just.
To better themselves
Yeah, it never made you better.
for the
It
most
just,
part.
yeah, it always brought you up to the level. It never. It wasn't there to help you get ahead. It was there if you failed
Or
algebra 3 years in a row.
yeah. Or for some people to like get ahead. Because I used summer school to not do PE for the second year and do music instead.
Oh man, summer school PE, that's a story I can tell. That's. I want Sandy here for that one though, because that's funny. 'Cause I took.
Yeah, I didn't have summer PE with you. At least I don't remember.
No, because I took summer PE via the PE textbook.
That is actually awesome.
I'll tell that story next week when we get Sam on, because that's actually a really funny story.
Wait, there could definitely be like clubs that can be incorporated as classes like mock trial or model UN.
Was that a club at Centennial?
Yes, they were both clubs.
We had a model UN? I don't remember. I don't have any memory of that.
Actually, I'm not sure if we had a model UN. I know Carmel did, but I think no, Centennial didn't.
Yeah. What do you learn in that kind of class?
Model UN is basically research and debate. So a
Hmm.
lot like mock trial, but it's more about international issues.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very like cool idea for a club. And then like different schools get together and then they debate about international issues. But they like quote represent the country that they're sort of representing, I guess.
Hmm.
So like it could be like a border dispute between what's a fun one people like to talk about.
Was it the Nicaragua Honduras where Google accidentally gave them land and then they invaded, claiming that?
Yeah, or like what is it? Like the fucking border gore that is the Balkans. Because if you get like the nitty gritty of it, it is just absolutely disgusting.
Bosnia, can I have coastline? Croatia, no.
Bosnia does have Croatia has a coastline though. It's like 10 miles wide though. Yeah, like stuff like that. Like it's definitely a cool idea.
No, clubs can definitely help supplement what classes aren't doing. The big problem is,
Is that their clubs?
Yeah.
They probably should be classes.
yeah, well, the clubs don't have enough structure. Like, if you remember back
Yeah.
to high school, like, most of the clubs were student run, which, like, was a really good thing because it allowed for a lot of clubs to exist that really wouldn't exist. But it also meant that clubs that were trying to do something along those lines couldn't really get off the ground. There was it was called the Ben Franklin Civil Society. It was started as halfway a joke, halfway a real thing, where it was meant to be a sort of so it started as part of a joke. I believe it was by Jordan, probably also Braden or Bing Bong, as I actually know him. So like there was an attempt at a like literary analysis and debate club, but because of it being run by students with students, so it was just a bunch of friends just hanging out, it never really got off the ground to do anything. So while all clubs had to have like a teacher advisor, the clubs were never like useful in that kind of area. So most clubs ended up just being like a way people hung out at lunch.
Yeah. Like the spike ball thing. Like niche sports is definitely more of a club thing than like something like mock trial.
Yeah, and I was captain of our school's croquet team.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so like there's no way clubs can like supplement fractional classes the way that they were run at our school, even though theoretically they could. They just never in practice could. Schools, man, they could be better.
Definitely hard to justify, but also I'm not sure how to like collect my thoughts and explain
Give it a minute.
about this topic. Like I was just gonna like talk about like the retard class. Like it's hard to justify, but it makes sense. Its existence.
Any group of humans exist on a bell curve, and you have to be able to accommodate for everyone on that bell curve.
Yeah. But, it's a bit hard to like go to kids and like, hey, you're in the retard class.
I mean, but like, what else can you do?
I know, that's sort of like the problem. Like, it's hard morally, but you kind of have to.
Yeah, because if you put them into a higher level class, then they're going to fail, and then they're going to feel bad about themselves, and then it's going to cause problems because you have people that fail. And
But if you tell people you're in the retard class,
Yeah.
or if they feel that they're in the retard class and they just give up, because it's already over in the fifth grade.
was there a retard class? Was that special ed? Ignore special ed. Was there actually a retard class in the 5th grade?
Yes, I was in the stupid
What?
math class. Yeah,
I don't remember that being a thing.
there were 3 levels of math,
Were there?
and I was in the lowest one, i.e., the stupid class.
I don't remember that. All I know about 5th grade math was I won a medal for getting like first in some math contest. Because I've always been really good at math.
Yeah, I've always been exceptionally terrible, so I got to be in the short bust version of the math class.
Yeah, I just have no memory of that at all.
Well, I do, which is why I have strong feelings about it.
Yeah. But I mean, it didn't demoralize you, did it? You just knew you weren't ever going to be a mathematician.
It did. It definitely made me feel like a fucking idiot,
Hmm.
which is that's also the problem with like standardized tests. Is that like you can't necessarily put a number on intelligence.
Yeah, but that standardized testing is a whole nother can of worms. That
Yeah.
there has to be some way to judge what kids know about any given subject, and the only way
But there has to be a reason to do it.
yeah, well, like colleges need a way to like know which kids are smart and which kids are dumb. and like the government needs a way to like know what schools are doing well and what schools are doing poorly. And like standardized testing, yeah, it's bad, but there's like nothing that can really serve those purposes as well.
Yeah.
It's like almost a necessary evil, but it really is a crutch that a lot of schools rely upon far too heavily.
Mm-hmm. Which sort of goes back to we need to like work on how schools are funded.
Yeah. When systems have been in place for so long, it is really difficult to change them. It's another thing we can talk about is some things are incredibly resistant to change because of how much that change would matter to everyone.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes like drastic change like immediately is the answer, but it's hard.
Whenever I think about stuff like that is the fact that like most banks are still run by punch cards. So there are still companies that create new, like brand new punch cards and new punch card reading machines because there are many institutions that like still run via like punch cards and no one wants to update them for fear of something going wrong. And no one wants to be the person who like updates the banking infrastructure and causes a global financial crash. And it's similar with education where no one wants to be the person to change the education system and then have something go wrong.
Yeah.
And like especially so one thing I talk about is you don't know, like even if you made a drastic change, you won't know if it worked for another 20 years. So my college recently switched from quarters to semesters, and I've spoken with some of the faculty about this, and no one will know if it was a good change until 2030, because by then everyone who knew quarters will be out, and it'll be two like rounds of people going into semesters and out with semesters. So it'll take like 10 to 15 years to know whether or not this was a good change. So if we drastically change the education system, it would take like another 20 years to find out whether or not it improved anything.
Probably even 30.
Possibly. Like it's 20 in the low end because you have to get everyone who's in the system right now through.
Out, and then at least one group who doesn't know through.
Precisely. And by then, 20 years, that's 5 new, in the US at least, it's 5 new administrations of government. So change...
Change is difficult, and...
Change, it has to be slow.
It takes way too long, but it has to take that long.
Yeah. From our perspective...
Well, history's consequences are hard to know immediately.
Of course. So while it's easy to talk about what should be changed, change has to be slow. That's how these things have to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And we just hope everything slowly improves. I mean, even though we hate and despise it, I have no ill feelings towards our middle and high school education.
Me neither, really. I'm just more mad at like the circumstances.
I mean, you got to see what it's like at the top.
I know. And that, like, I went to the top, and I didn't like what I saw. I wrote a whole, 6-page paper on why I think our education system sucked at Carmel, because I was that mad about what I saw.
Really?
Yeah, for my senior level writing class. It was more like it was like a history of the education system of California, which is pretty much it was garbage from the start, as you might expect from California. And sort of like how our current system for funding is problematic in that it allows wealthier communities to get much better schools. And the state should do something about it, which they are doing. And I sort of just complain about how the school, how the school I went to wasn't good because of the area it was in, well, comparatively.
Yeah.
And how the school where I currently go to isn't good because it's more education than fun. And I felt and still feel like that, like fun and liveliness at a school is very important for students. So I got to rag on that. Some people nodded. Some people were like, "Why would you say that?" Well, that was because I questioned why there is an LGBT week instead of a Spirit Week.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a fair comparison of things, but that definitely is something of note.
Well, I guess like
It definitely says something about the schools.
that's like LGBT week is like a thing for like a certain population of school, while a Spirit Week is for the entire population of the school.
That's true, and it does say a lot about the schools that which school had which.
Yeah.
This is a topic we can always just do more follow up to in smaller segments in later episodes.
Mm-hmm. And pressure Sam to talk about how he feels. Honestly, bro, fuck the government.